You ever think about how life can throw you these unexpected twists? Like one moment you're living your high-powered life, and the next something happens that makes you stop and question everything. That's exactly what happened to Elon Musk. A billionaire, a genius, and someone who's always moving at lightning speed. But this time, it wasn't about rockets or electric cars, it was about a man he hadn't thought about in decades. Elon had just wrapped up another long day at SpaceX headquarters. He was walking through the building late at night, his mind racing with plans for Mars colonization, when he heard a soft humming sound coming from down the hall. At first, he ignored it. Probably some engineer working overtime again. But then, as he turned the corner, he saw him. An elderly man bent over a mop bucket, cleaning the floors like it was the most important job in the world. And then it hit Elon. This man looked familiar. Very familiar. It took a second, but then it clicked. This man wasn't just any janitor. This was Mr. Thompson. The same guy who cleaned the halls of his high school all those years ago. A wave of memories flooded back, late nights studying in the library while Mr. Thompson quietly swept around him, the way the old man would always have a kind word, even when Elon felt like no one understood him. But here's the thing, Mr. Thompson was 80 years old now. 80. How could someone still be doing such hard work at that age? The sight stopped Elon in his tracks. He stood there for a moment, watching the man move slowly but deliberately, every step telling a story of dedication and resilience. Then, without thinking twice, Elon walked over and introduced himself. "Mr. Thompson," Elon said softly, not wanting to startle the man. The old janitor turned around, surprise lighting up his face. "Well, well," he said with a chuckle. "If it isn't little Elon Musk, look at you now." And just like that, two worlds collided. Elon couldn't believe it. There he was, one of the most successful people on the planet, standing face to face with a man who had been a quiet but constant presence in his teenage years. Back then, Elon was known as the brainy kid who spent most of his time buried in books or coding on his computer. He didn't fit in much, but Mr. Thompson always made him feel welcome. "You remember me?" Elon asked, still processing the moment. "Of course I do," Mr. Thompson replied, leaning on his mop like it was an old friend. "You were the one reading science fiction novels during lunch instead of hanging out with your friends. Always dreaming big, weren't you?" Elon smiled at the memory. "I guess I was." They talked for a while, catching up on lost time. Mr. Thompson told Elon how he'd stayed in the same line of work all these years because it gave him purpose. "Keeps me busy," he said with a shrug. "Besides, someone's gotta keep things clean." But as they spoke, something nagged at Elon. Why was a man in his 80s still working such a physically demanding job? Didn't he have family to take care of him, or savings? When Elon finally asked, Mr. Thompson's expression darkened just a little. "It's been tough," he admitted. "My wife passed away 10 years ago, and my kids, well, let's just say they've got their own lives now. Social Security helps, but rent keeps going up, and medical bills don't wait for anyone." Elon listened intently, feeling a mix of admiration and sadness. Here was a man who had worked tirelessly for decades, yet somehow fallen through the cracks of a system that should have protected him. It wasn't fair, and if there's one thing Elon Musk hates, it's unfairness. As the conversation wound down, Elon offered to help however he could. But Mr. Thompson waved him off. "Don't worry about me, son. You've got bigger fish to fry." But Elon knew better. He couldn't shake the image of this hard-working man, still mopping floors at 80. It stuck with him long after they parted ways that night. That night, Elon couldn't sleep. The image of Mr. Thompson hunched over his mop kept replaying in his mind. It wasn't just about one man, it was about a system that let people like Mr. Thompson struggle even after dedicating their lives to work. Elon had always prided himself on solving big problems, from renewable energy to space travel, but this felt different, personal. The next morning, Elon called an emergency meeting with his closest advisors. "We need to do something," he declared without preamble. Something big. His team exchanged curious glances. They were used to Elon's ambitious ideas, but this sounded unusual. One of them finally spoke up. "What exactly are you thinking, Elon?" "I'm thinking we create a program," he said, pacing the room. "A program to help people like Mr. Thompson, people who've worked hard their whole lives, but still end up struggling in old age. We'll call it legacy support." The room buzzed with questions. How would they fund it? Who would qualify? What form would the support take? But Elon was already ahead of them. He outlined a plan, using profits from Tesla and SpaceX to provide financial assistance, healthcare coverage, and even housing options for elderly workers across the country. It wouldn't just be charity, it would be a model for change. But not everyone was convinced. Some warned him it could drain resources needed for other projects. Others pointed out potential legal hurdles. Yet Elon stood firm. "If we can send rockets to Mars, we can figure this out," he said, firmly. And so the wheels began to turn. Over the following weeks, Elon poured his energy into making legacy support a reality. He hired experts, consulted economists, and reached out to government officials. Slowly but surely, the pieces fell into place. Meanwhile, word got back to Mr. Thompson about what Elon was doing. When Elon visited him again, the old man shook his head in disbelief. "You're going through all this trouble because of me?" he asked. Elon smiled. "Not just because of you, because of everyone like you." But little did they know, this was only the beginning. As the program gained momentum, it attracted attention, not all of it positive. Powerful interests started taking notice, and soon, Elon found himself facing challenges far greater than anything he'd anticipated. The launch of legacy support was nothing short of explosive. Within weeks, thousands of elderly workers applied for assistance, sharing stories of hardship and resilience that tugged at everyone's heartstrings. The media coverage was overwhelming. Headlines praising Elon Musk for his generosity and vision filled newspapers and social media feeds. People called it a game-changing initiative, proof that success could be paired with compassion. But not everyone was cheering. A group of powerful corporate executives began whispering behind closed doors. They saw legacy support as a threat, not just to their profits, but to the entire system they'd built. For years, they'd relied on cheap labor, exploiting loopholes in labor laws to keep costs low. Now, here was Elon Musk challenging the status quo, showing the world that things didn't have to stay this way. One morning, Elon received an anonymous letter slipped under his office door. Inside was a single sentence: "You're stepping on the wrong toes." At first he brushed it off. He'd faced criticism before, and it had never stopped him. But soon, the threats grew more frequent and more dangerous. His car tires were slashed outside his home. Strange calls came in late at night, voices warning him to back down. Even some members of his own team started questioning whether legacy support was worth the risk. Elon, one advisor, said hesitantly, "Maybe we should slow down. This is bigger than you realize." But Elon refused to listen. He doubled down, pouring even more resources into expanding the program. He traveled across the country, meeting with workers who'd benefited from legacy support. He heard their stories of widows finally able to afford medicine, of retired teachers moving into safe housing, of janitors like Mr. Thompson finding dignity in their golden years. Each story fueled his determination. Still, the opposition wasn't backing down. One day, while giving a press conference about legacy support, Elon noticed something odd. A flash of movement in the crowd. Before he could react, a man rushed forward, shouting angrily. Security intervened quickly, but the message was clear: someone wanted to stop him. Back at SpaceX headquarters, Elon gathered his team for an emergency meeting. "They're trying to scare us," he said bluntly. "But fear isn't going to win this fight. We need to strike back, not with anger, but with facts. Let's expose what they're really afraid of." And so, they launched a campaign to educate the public about the realities of elder poverty. They shared statistics. personal testimonies, and proposals for systemic change. It wasn't easy. Every step forward seemed to spark new resistance. Yet somehow, despite the obstacles, legacy support continued to grow. Meanwhile, Mr. Thompson watched it all unfold from afar. He marveled at how one conversation in a quiet hallway had sparked such a massive movement. "I always knew you were special," he told Elon during one of their phone calls, "but I never imagined this." Elon laughed, though there was a hint of weariness in his voice. "Sometimes, changing the world feels like climbing Mount Everest barefoot, but if anyone can do it, it's us." As the battle intensified, both sides prepared for what was coming next, because one thing was certain: this wasn't over yet. And whatever happened next would change everything, for better or worse. The tipping point came during a high-profile debate, hosted by one of the largest financial networks. Elon had agreed to participate, hoping to address his critics directly and clarify legacy support's goals. But what started as a discussion quickly turned into a heated confrontation. Across the table sat Robert Langley, CEO of a multinational corporation notorious for its aggressive cost-cutting measures. Langley was smooth-talking and confident, arguing that programs like legacy support would disrupt the free market and lead to economic chaos. "You're asking businesses to shoulder the burden of social welfare," Langley said with a smirk. "That's not sustainable." Elon leaned forward, his calm demeanor masking the fire in his eyes. "Sustainable? Tell me, Mr. Langley, how is it sustainable to let hard-working people live in poverty after dedicating their lives to your profits? How is it sustainable to ignore the human cost of greed?" The audience murmured, clearly divided. Some applauded Elon's passion, while others seemed swayed by Langley's polished rhetoric. The moderator tried to interject, but the tension between the two men was palpable. Langley shot back, his tone dripping with condescension. "Mr. Musk, you may have rockets and electric cars, but you don't understand the complexities of running a global business. Your idealism will only hurt the very people you claim to help." For a moment, silence hung in the air. Then Elon stood up, his voice steady and firm. "You're wrong," he said simply. "What I see isn't idealism, it's reality. A reality where workers are treated with dignity, where companies contribute to society instead of exploiting it. And if my idealism threatens your profits, then maybe it's time for a new kind of leadership." The room erupted. Applause broke out from parts of the audience, while others whispered nervously. Outside, news outlets scrambled to capture the moment. Social media exploded with reactions, hashtags trending worldwide. Legacy support became a rallying cry for those who believed in a fairer future. But the victory wasn't without cost. Over the following days, the attacks intensified. Hackers targeted SpaceX servers, attempting to sabotage operations. Protesters gathered outside Tesla factories, demanding answers. Even some government officials began questioning the legality of legacy support, hinting at investigations. Yet through it all, Elon remained resolute. He worked tirelessly, addressing each challenge head-on. When hackers struck, his team implemented stronger cybersecurity measures. When protests flared, he met with community leaders to listen and explain. And when legal threats loomed, he hired top lawyers to defend the program. Meanwhile, Mr. Thompson watched the chaos unfold from his small apartment. One evening, he picked up the phone and called Elon. "Son," he said gently, "you've done enough. Maybe it's time to step back." Elon paused, considering the weight of those words. "I can't," he replied finally. "Not until we win this fight. Not until every person like you gets the respect they deserve." And with that, he made a decision that would change everything. In the end, Elon's persistence paid off. After months of relentless effort, legacy support gained enough momentum to become unstoppable. Public opinion shifted decisively in his favor, forcing even the most resistant corporations to reconsider their stance. Lawmakers introduced legislation inspired by the program, creating a framework for nationwide elder support initiatives. The turning point came during a national address broadcast live on every major network. Standing alongside workers who'd benefited from legacy support, Elon spoke directly to the nation. This isn't just about helping a few people, he said. It's about building a future where everyone has a chance at dignity and security, where hard work is rewarded, not punished. His words resonated deeply, sparking conversations across communities and inspiring similar efforts around the world. Even Robert Langley, once his fiercest critic, admitted that legacy support had forced him to rethink his approach to corporate responsibility. As the dust settled, Elon took a moment to reflect. He visited Mr. Thompson one last time, this time not in a dimly lit hallway, but in a bright new apartment, provided through legacy support. The old janitor greeted him with a warm smile, his eyes twinkling with pride. "You did it," Mr. Thompson said softly. "You showed the world what kindness and determination can achieve." Elon nodded, feeling a mix of relief and gratitude. "No," he corrected gently. "We did it, together." But as they sat talking, Elon revealed something unexpected. "There's more coming," he said, with a mischievous grin. "Legacy support was just the beginning. Next I want to tackle education reform, healthcare access, maybe even universal basic income." Mr. Thompson laughed heartily. "You never stop, do you?" "Nope," Elon replied with a chuckle, "and neither should you." As the camera faded out, metaphorically speaking, the audience was left wondering, what would Elon Musk do next? And more importantly, who else might rise up to join him in reshaping the world? One thing was certain, this wasn't the end of the story. It was merely the beginning of something much bigger. So what do you think? Did Elon go too far, or was this exactly the kind of bold move the world needed? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you loved this story as much as I did, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. But here's the real question: who else deserves recognition for their hard work and dedication? Do you know someone like Mr. Thompson, someone who's given their all but hasn't gotten the support they need? Tell me about them in the comments. Maybe together, we can make sure their stories don't go unnoticed. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an update. Next week, I'm diving into another incredible true story, one that will leave you speechless. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and let's keep making the world a better place, one story at a time.